Hey folks, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy's Ted.
Don't use bandits, instead use this Dungeons & Dragons monster. We're going to start this video by thanking our sponsor, Easy Roller Dice. Whether it's your first set of dice or your 1 millionth set of dice, Easy Roller Dice for all your dice rolling needs. Down in the description, you can find a one-time coupon code for a whopping 20% off, as well as a special link, easyrollerdice.com/nerdarchy. Go get yourself some Easy Roller Dice.
All right, so today we're doing another edition of Don't Use This, Use That, and we're talking bandits.
We are talking bandits. So bandits are probably one of the, if not the most boring monster in Dungeons & Dragons, and they get used often.
Well, bandits are one of those, they're core staples, and they're easy to use for a GM because they could literally be thrown, almost anywhere. It's like, oh, you're camping out. Well, bandits are going to sneak up on you in the night and take your stuff. Oh, you're walking down a trail. Boom, bandits spring out and, do the ambush.
The mayor's son was taken by bandits and being held for ransom. It's a pretty standard trope, but it can be very vanilla and very boring. But it doesn't have to be. Instead of just using bandits, we can fix this. We can fix this by just using better bandits. There's great examples in literature, in movies, probably even in comics. Wherever you look, you can find examples of bandits.
Even Robin Hood, and his merry men, they're bandits. They rob from the rich and give to the poor. And, this goes back, quite a ways. So clearly bandits have got use.
Right. And, it's a great example because, one, they have a dynamic and dashing leader. It's the merry men. It's not just any old bandits. And they kind of have a shtick. We rob from the rich and we give to the poor. So that makes them a bit more exciting. More recently, you can look at Campaign 2 for Critical Role. Matt Mercer has used bandits as kind of like this reoccurring joke.
Well, in the game, the PCs, the Mighty Nine, encounter a set of bandits. The bandits get their butts whooped, and the PCs they essentially rob the bandits. They even take their pants and send them off scurrying. So the players walk away with their horses, and off they go. Well, later on, they encounter the same set of bandits or, bandits that know of them. And as soon as the fight is starting, their leader's like, wait, don't attack anymore.
We didn't know it was you guys. We didn't mean it.
And it's hysterical that the fight, stops almost as soon as it starts. The goblin takes some arrows. Bo still knocks one of them out, proceeds to rob him of his 9 silver pieces. But it's hysterical that they have this, interchange of look, we don't want to attack you guys. We're sorry.
Even in my own game, after the players had been adventuring for a while with their characters, I introduced bandits, and it was at some point I knew during the encounter they would recognize the players as the Scarlet Sisterhood and be like, whoa, wait a minute. That's Agnetha Armbreaker. We are not messing with her. We give up. It's just funny, little comic relief. It ties your players into the world, and it also kind of acknowledges that they've done stuff. So it makes it a little bit more interesting. Another great example is Game of Thrones. You have the Brotherhood Without Banners. It's another organization of bandits, but they're formed out of desperation. The nations are all at war. Armies are marching through, taking their crops, taking everything they have. They turn to banditry as a way of survival because they have nothing. They have no other choices, no other good choices. So that's also a good example of interesting and dynamic characters that, well, maybe after the players really start beating them down or capture them, and then they hear their story and then they actually kind of feel bad about not getting robbed. So that's another thing.
In the example of Critical Role, Molly actually gives them a suit of armor. We're sorry about you attacking us. Here. take this. So there's ways to kind of take these bandits, as you said, draw the emotional angle into it. If you're going to use bandits, well, who are they? Are you using a set of bandits with a notable leader like Robin Hood? Are you using a set of bandits that are out there out of desperation, like, Game of Thrones? If you have a reason for why they're there, and there is some kind of story element to it, your players might not have a conversation with them. You might never get to what that is. But you know what? Just because they didn't engage the story there doesn't mean it didn't happen. You can tie that back in later when somebody's, coming for revenge, or, they encounter the reason for why they're bandits, later on in their journeys. You can pull all of that together and have everything make sense and come to a story end.
Or you can just run with a shtick, right? Whatever that might be. Maybe they're all halflings, right? So you're using halflings, it's going to mildly change their statistics. You could use the abilities that halflings get, like lucky and things, things of that nature. It might be comical, it might be funny. You're being robbed, by halflings, or maybe this particular group of bandits they're infamous. They have made a name for themselves. They're known for something they do, something they carry. They have a particular banner. Maybe there's a particular thing they're always looking to steal. These are all different things you could look at in order to make it more interesting. Maybe they use a certain kind of beast of burden that's kind of exotic in this world, in your world or in this region. Maybe they come from someplace else. They've been disposed and they've become very successful as bandits, and they've been in a certain location for years, and the local constable has not been able to get rid of them, hasn't been able to deal with them. If your merchant caravan makes it through, you're just considered lucky. All these different things. Or, the goods are so much more expensive in this area because they have to deal with this scourge of bandits.
You mentioned halflings, so that just reminds me of Oliver de Burrows, from the Crimson Shadow trilogy. Awesome character. You say, that the bandits do something, that reminds me of Zorro, who carves the Z. So, like, you could do cool things like that, and, make the encounters that much more interesting and memorable. And maybe you encounter clues that allow you to lead up to it, depending upon what you want to do with the bandits.
Well, I feel like a good example is if you look to like old Wild Wild West movies and stories, there is a lot of great examples of bandits and colorful characters that lead these bandits. Like, because the main guy, maybe he's not actually like a quote unquote bandit, but he could be, right? If you make him more interesting, he may not have the stats to support it, but your players, they don't know the difference. They're just going to know the description you give. There was one other area where we talked about where you could really make your bandits tie into your world and really shine, and not just be a combat encounter, but be a role-playing encounter that has the potential to really pull on the heartstrings of your players. We were talking with Nate, and the three of us, when we were discussing this video, the idea of, what if the bandits were made up of people, maybe not all of them, it could be one or two, or it could be all of them, but people that the players have encountered previously in other adventures and stories. They were just NPCs, maybe they were just commoners and townsfolk, but they've come on hard times, much like the Brotherhood without banners. It could be a very similar thing like that. Or maybe your wild sorcerer or wild mage sorcerer rolled on that chart and blew up someone's establishment, and they have no means of supporting themselves. It was just a blip in a funny encounter that happened for that player. But now this person, they're like, well, you blew up my tavern, and I had no way of making money anymore. It's not like they had ye old insurance,
Right? And Nate was saying, like, okay, well, what happens if the town, typically adventurers, they roam from town to town, going and doing the adventurer lifestyle. Our games tend to be different as we cycle back to our home city, over and over again. But in the old days when we played, it was, you were on this constant quest where you were always moving. You might occasionally come back, to talk to a quest giver or what have you. But as you're off and as you're traveling, a big bad or someone who has significant power, much more so than a simple townsfolk, and you've been thwarting their plans, they could be coming after you, and they could be dealing. Oh well, this inn that you stayed at, well, I burned it down because you harbored a fugitive from my justice, and tavern keeper is not going to be able to stand up to a boss, a big bad, if you will. So like these ramifications could fall on them, and that could lead to banditry, and it could give, as you said, pulling on the heartstrings of the players. Were like, oh my God, we created this nightmare, and these people that we know and love, we just beat the crap out of them, or they're trying to attack us because they need money because of our actions.
I think you even like brought up the idea of, what if they held the players responsible for like this series of unfortunate events that unfold because of the actions of the players. Now, it's not technically their fault, but it's in response to stuff they did. And, and people being people just need someone to blame sometimes. So with that in mind, they blame the players, and like this organization or mob of people kind of gather up, and the bandit status is as good as any other that you could use to actually introduce these as now like reoccurring villains, I guess, or reoccurring NPCs for sure. But then it turns out that the reason why they are out to get the players now is because of things that the players have done. And, these people have been harmed by indirectly or directly by those actions.
So, those are just, some of the things that you can do to, spice up and make your bandits more than just a simple stat block and a throwaway encounter. But I'm certain you guys out there might have some cool bandit stories or some other suggestions that you might want to share with the community. Put those down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
While you're headed down in the comments, stop by that description and use that link to grab yourself some Easy Roller dice.
So until next time, stay nerdy.